From the Dallas On Air studios in beautiful Dallas, Texas, this is Ful FILM here on DallasOnAir.com. And now here's your host via Skype, the Vegabomber PJ Dunn and the film samurai Carlos Salinas.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm from the homestead and so is Carlos, so this is a little different. What do you think, Carlos? This is a little different, huh?
Yeah. Well, we gotta follow the rules, right?
That's right.
Social distancing and all that.
That's right.
Yeah, it's cool. Something new, something different.
Yeah.
See, it's comfortable. I didn't have to drive, had to stay out of the cesspool of downtown Dallas. And
Now, our city is gorgeous.
I give Dallas a hard time.
We ain't RoboCop yet.
Yeah, right?
Yet.
Well, the interesting thing is we're in a whole new world, aren't we now?
Yes.
Because now we're seeing movie theaters be empty for the first time, which then is going to affect us, people who talk about movies a lot. So for all the fans watching today, you've probably been starving for some content. Well, here it is. We're going to talk about what you're talking about. So this episode 6, believe it or not, of season 2, we're gonna look into the effect of this virus to some of our favorite hobbies, which is going out and watching movies. And then we're gonna try to end on a positive note to tell you what kind of things are worth binging, the things that you can see if you can't go to the theater, what's worth binging, and then we'll tell you some movies that we think are worth rewatches that might just help you pass some of that time. So if y'all are ready to go, and I think the crew is ready to go, let's jump into that.
Let's go ahead and
first
introduce the
segment.
crew. You should introduce the crew because we're here.
Yes. Well, this is weird for me to see y'all this way, so let me try it this way. We're all the guy behind the camera today, right? So, yes, Carlos is here. You can see him. He's got his Texas Ranger baseball hat on. And Zack today is just simply ZS.
That's okay. They
Otherwise,
he's
Zack.
There we are.
All right. So with that, and I'm still trying to figure out who to look at and what to look at here with my screens up and everything. Let's jump into that first segment called Box Office Economics. And there's wiki right in there like this. I gotta make sure I put my hands up so I can There it is. So for the box office economics, this might be important because this is probably the last one that we're going to have for a while. So this is the box office economics from the week of March 13th to March 15th. And so we'll start from,
go ahead.
Yeah, right. And starting with number 5, the number 5 movie in the land that people are spending their money on is a movie called The Hunt. It's pulled in $5.3 million at this point. The number 4 movie right now is The Invisible Man, and it's pulling in about 5.9, so just barely leapfrogs over The Hunt.
Nice.
The number 3 movie, which really is tied, number 2 and number 3 are in the same spot, really. It's the faith-based film, I Still Believe, at 9.2, and Bloodshot is also at 9.2, the Vin Diesel vehicle. And number 1, not a surprise, is a Disney Pixar film. It is Onward, and it pulled in a measly $10.6 million. So, guys, what do you think of these numbers?
Yeah, probably not surprising. It's kind of neat to see 2 horror movies on the top 5 list. I'll talk about The Hunt later, which I enjoyed. It was a blast to watch. Onward. Had no interest in seeing it. Faith-based movie, I Still Believe now. I passed on that. I did kind of want to see Bloodshot after I found out Tony Kebbell was in it, and they said he had a really fun scene. But it's too late now. I'm gonna have to wait for VOD or streaming to catch that one. But the numbers, way down, and from here on out, I feel so bad for the theater owners, especially the small ones, the family-owned chains and stuff. But look online. There's a really good essay done by Christopher Nolan about how important cinema and theaters are, and ways we can do to support them. And man, hopefully they come back. If they don't, man, it's going to tear me apart. I don't want to see Tenet the first time I watch Tenet on the small screen, you know, on my TV. I want to see it on the big screen in IMAX with surround sound and Dolby Atmos and all that stuff. You know, it's disheartening.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right on point with that. And now thinking about that in these terms, before when we'd look at these lists, you know, the bottom, you know, number 5 would be somewhere around maybe 10 or 11 million, but that's what the top is at this stage of the game. And then you can imagine what the impact of this is going to be on theaters right now, because some of these, like Universal, has decided to go ahead and release some of the films like Invisible Man, Emma, and The Hunt for in-home rentals, right? And then Sony jumped behind it too and announced that they would go ahead and let Bloodshot be released at home for home viewers less than just 2 weeks after its theatrical debut. So this causes an interesting problem, maybe even litigation, from the perspective of the theaters are supposed to have exclusive rights, you know, before they can go do this. And now the movie theaters are saying, no, we're just going to go ahead and cut y'all out altogether and just go ahead and start, you know, releasing some of these. So some of these films are already coming out without a theatrical release, and that would be Disney leading the way with that. They've already said that when they release the Trolls World Tour in April 10, that they're going to do that without a domestic theatrical run date. So now you can see that this is going to cause problems between the movie houses and the people who own the theaters, who are trying to find a way to keep people employed and still show films. Zack, any thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, this is not a great test market at this point for this kind of economic thing. But again, like I said, it's kind of built out by necessity at this point, because, I mean, you've got 2 kind of lackluster horror films. You've got, you know, the Vin Diesel vehicle, which is irrelevant anymore. Not to mention the fact that, hell, you've got a lackluster Pixar film, which no one has any interest in seeing. It's going to create a weird dichotomy. But again, we are in a weird dichotomy at this point. The industry is really going to be turned on its head again, because now they do have a way to get it into new releases into homes, and they're gonna have to find a way to keep movies going. And yeah, they are going to cut out the theater. They are going to cut out the theaters, especially, and that's really hard for everyone who works in the theater industry at this point. It's going to be a really imaginably tough time, and it's going to be a tough time to get folks back into theaters once this is all done. So I mean, yeah,
there's going to be that lingering fear, you know, being around people and safety and germs and all that stuff, you know. So yeah. It's going to be horrible.
Forbes has put a projection out there, and the Forbes projection is that movie theaters are going to take a $4 billion hit, and that's just estimates of what they know right now. Of course, the longer this spreads out, it will be billions more. So I don't know who wins. And, you know, the ironic thing is, and you brought this up, and Christopher Nolan's piece is excellent too, people have to remember from a historical perspective that movies is what actually kind of saved people from an entertainment perspective back in the 30s. When you talk about right after the Great Depression, people got out to watch those black and white serials. And then from that, we get everything else. We know that Lucas was totally enthralled with serials and that sort of thing. That's what helped, you know, shape him when he started to do Star Wars. So yeah, we've got interesting situation coming here. And Carlos,
we didn't even talk about the Oscars coming up. You know, like what the hell are they going to do? Is there going to be an Oscars? You know, is there enough movies out there to, you know, to fill all these, you know, nominations? But that's neither here nor there. It's think about it.
Well, I mean, you've got a whole bunch of films delayed too. I mean, everything that was in production, overseas,
James Bond
overseas is delayed, and you've got to believe that at no point do they want to put people in the theaters, because at this point it's a risk.
Yes, yeah, it's true. And now the whole, and like you guys are saying, the tightrope here is if these big film houses decide to, or the production teams decide to just start releasing it straight without ever putting it in the theater, it's going to be hard to come back from that, because once people get used to, hey, I can watch the brand new movie straight in my house. Yeah, I'll pay an extra premium for it maybe, but I can watch it in my house and invite friends over. So people who are very, from the perspective of being an extrovert, might just do their own version of a movie house by having people come over to their house and them getting the film, people watching, like when people do pay-per-views. Yep. See, and so if they go to that world,
maybe
it
it'll
might
cut back on pirating too.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some things here that are going to get worked out. And so true believers and fans that are watching the show, we'll keep you up to breast on that. And we thought we'd just start with the realities first. And then, of course, we'll jump into the fun, because there is some good stuff. Now, there really isn't anything coming soon that we could talk about other than just things that are going to be on TV and perhaps streaming services. So what we thought we would do is at least tell you what the last couple of things we've seen in the theaters or maybe on the screen first, and then we'll jump into the topic of today's show, which are the best binge-worthy movie series to watch, and then what are the best rewatchable movies to watch. And of course, we'll probably update that continually, because there's more than just 3 that we'll give you today. So starting with just seen it, we'll go to you, Carlos.
Okay.
And, did you see Fast before everything got shut down?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of sad that the last movie I'll have seen in a theater will be The Hunt. But you know what? I actually had a good time with it. It was actually made me laugh a lot, actually. Let me give you the description of it. 12 strangers wake up in a clearing. They don't know where they are or how they got there. They don't know they've been chosen for a very specific purpose. The hunt. So this is an hour and 30 minutes, directed by Craig Zobel. I'm not familiar with his work. I haven't seen any of his other films, but it stars Betty Gilpin from Glow, the Netflix series, and Hilary Swank. And I can tell you, Hilary Swank in this, wow, she gave in a performance here, as did Betty Gilpin. It's a lot of horror kills, and they kind of reverse the good guy bad guy, because in this case the bad guys or the villains are kind of these neoliberal elites who have kidnapped these kind of Trump supporters and turned them loose in the forest and basically killing them off one by one. And so it's written by Nick Hughes and Damon Lindelof, which people know from Lost. They were the showrunners for the last, I don't know exactly how many seasons, but the script is very clever. It's very dark humor. It's black humor, and it will make you laugh if you go in with the right attitude or mood or whatever. But man, I had a great time with it. And Betty Gilpin, wow, she was good as this kind of almost kind of like a merc. She had been like in Afghanistan, so she was a vet, like a soldier. So she knew weapons, and she's very smart as well. So she was able to stay alive, survive this hunt. The other film I saw was The Ballad of Lefty Brown. I saw this on Netflix. I don't know if it's a Netflix original, but Netflix got it, and it stars Bill Pullman and Jim Caviezel is in it. Also Peter Fonda, and it was directed by Jared Moshi. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but the description of this is a thrilling and action-packed Western. The Ballad of Lefty Brown is a story about loyalty, friendship, and the relentless pursuit of justice. And Bill Pullman, of course, everybody knows him from what's that disaster? Independence Day, right? He was the president, gave that great speech. He's been in a ton of stuff. He's played a lot of character roles. And this one, he's really in his full-blown character role. He's a ranch hand. He's got this big, bushy beard. He limps around. He's had an injury probably from the war. And he works for this landowner, Peter Fonda. And I can't give away the plot, but it is about doing the right thing, relentless pursuit of justice, as the description says. And there's some twists and turns in it. It's got some other great character actors in it. So yeah, I'd recommend it if you have Netflix and you're looking for a good old fashioned Western to watch. Yeah, it's really good, and Bill Pullman is great in it. I think he's one of our national treasures as far as actors. He doesn't get a lot of notoriety like some of the other actors do, but he's fantastic in this film. So those are my just seen it's.
Awesome. How about you, Zack? What have you seen recently?
So my just seen it this week. If I can go to it, yeah, there it is. All right. So my just seen it this week is Better Call Saul, the latest season. Continuing the adventures of Saul Goodman, played by Bob Odenkirk.
Yes.
You're getting some really great development here. If you're familiar with the Breaking Bad Better Call Saul series, you're getting to see Bob Odenkirk going to go full Saul Goodman. You're getting to see him pull the tricks and trades. You're getting to see some cracks in the armor of some of the established characters. Gus Fring, played by Giancarlo Esposito. You're also seeing cracks in Mike's demeanor. You're seeing the world kind of fall apart before it comes back together really hard and strong. It's just been a fantastic kind of ride. It's been a different ride this year. Actors showing kind of different levels of these characters that they've had to come back and revisit. But it's still very interesting. It's still fun to watch, and of course, like I said, if you've liked the series before, it's a really kind of the next level of that show. So it's been worth kind of bringing back to the thing. But that's what I've watched lately.
Man, that's great. That's great. That's actually what I need to go back to, because I started and I watched the first, I think, 2 seasons. Do you know what seasons are on? What season they're at now?
We're on season 4.
Okay, on season 4.
I just finished season 3, and yeah, season 3 was amazing. It just came out on Netflix. So
yeah,
excellent. Okay, great. Well, it's funny that you kind of framed everything the way you did, Carlos, because I feel the same way. It's like sad that the last movie I saw in the theater was I Still Believe, this is very interesting. I didn't go to this movie because I really wanted to see it. In fact, it was just a movie I was more curious about than anything else, and it happened to be playing at the right time at a matinee, so I just popped in because I happened to have an appointment cancel. So I think that's important that I give you the context. This movie, it's a drama romance film. It's based on the true story of Christian music star Jeremy Camp and his journey of love and loss. And it's about an hour and 57 minutes long. I don't really care for drama romance films, so that's why I put up that cautionary thing. But the curiosity was, is this getting better? Like, I need to see, are the faith-based films getting better? I mean, they're notoriously horrible and over-preachy, but there have been some that have been pretty good. So really the curiosity was, is this decent enough? Does this hold with stuff like Risen, which I thought was excellent, and Luther, and some other films that were actually really good films? So this film actually came out on March 13th. The directors were 2 brothers. It was Andrew Irwin and John Irwin. And it stars 2 familiar faces that we'll know. Gary Sinise is in this film. Private Dan, right?
Lieutenant
and
Dan.
Shania Twain is in this film as well.
He didn't get his legs well enough for you to call him private, son.
Right. Now, the thing is, what I'll say about the film is just simply this. If you liked Fault in Our Stars, if you liked films like that, then this is probably a film you're going to like from that perspective. This movie is really a portrait about doubt, faith, love, and grief, and then heartbreak. So, again, not stuff that I rush out to the theater for, but was here, and I would say that it was competently acted. I won't say that this is a movie that y'all should rush out and go see. I wouldn't say that at all. But I do know that there's a certain demographic, other than just necessarily Christians, who do like these kind of films that are tearjerkers, and I'm trying not to give away the big piece of it, right? But there's some stuff that happens that even though they did X thing and thought they were in the clear, it still didn't work out. So what happens then, and how does that challenge your belief system now, and this sort of thing? And so actually pretty good. And it was based off Jeremy Camp's life. I don't listen to any of his music, so it wasn't that. And he's okay. I don't like Christian music as much as the movies originally, because I think the production values hasn't always been there, although it's getting somewhat better, right? Or a lot better in some cases. So
you don't have KLTY on your radio?
No. So I think what I would say ultimately about the film is that, again, it is, like The Notebook. It is like The Fault in Your Stars. So if you liked that, you'll probably like this. But for me, I would just say, it was okay. And that happens to be the last movie I saw on the big screen. Can you believe that?
You nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars.
Right?
It's the only one movies that came out.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be crazy when we do the Foscars. It's going to be between this, The Hunt, and on for Best Picture. How depressing would that be? So,
totally.
With all that, let us get to the good stuff. Let us get to the reason for the season and why we're here. So, yes, we're in our situation, but that doesn't mean that all hope is lost. So there are some great pictures, movies, and also series that you can actually downstream or take a look at now. And so let's get into that. We're going to get into the binge-worthy series now, and we'll start with The Samurai. Give us your top 3 things you think we should watch.
Okay, let's do it. You're stuck at home, you want something good to watch. I'm going to start with Band of Brothers. This is a mini-series. It didn't go on for many seasons like these other ones do. But the quality of the show is fantastic. Produced by Steven Spielberg. A lot of character actors in it, a lot of unknowns at the time who went on to go on to bigger acting roles. But it's basically the story of C Company, World War II. Starts in their boot camp, how the commanding officer just tore these guys up with training, running up this Curry Hill with their full packs and building these guys into a unit, a tough unit. And they hated this guy, but if it wasn't for that guy, a lot of these guys wouldn't have survived the war, because he made them strong and tough, and they could outlast the enemy because they were trained so well. And so it followed these guys all over Europe until the very last episode, where they end up at the Eagle's Nest, where Hitler had built this almost like a castle up in the Alps in Austria. And it's a superior series. I'd recommend it. I'm sure a lot of people have already seen this, but I'm planning on
it was great.
rewatching it again. Yeah. So number 2, Mad Men. I've watched this all the way through. I started watching this on at Netflix, actually. I didn't watch it when it originally came out. It ran from 2007 to 2015. So I didn't really watch it when it came out. I think it was an AMC series. So when they released them all, the episodes on Netflix, I started binge watching it. And man, I really got into it. It's the story of Don Draper. It takes place in the early 60s, and they describe it as a drama about one of New York's most prestigious ad agency at the beginning of the 1960s, focusing on one of the firm's most mysterious but extremely talented ad executives, Donald Draper. And Donald Draper, played by John Hamm. The interesting part about this whole thing, and it kind of lingers throughout the series, is Don Draper is kind of like an alternate. He took this guy's name during the war, when they were both in the war, and the guy was killed. So he took his name and his, not personality, but it was a way for him to start a new life. And so in a new life, he became this ad guy. It kind of shows his start out, and it jumps back and forth from time to time. It goes to flashbacks to when he was a kid. He had a very tough early life. He basically grew up in like a whorehouse. His mom was a whore, and so that he has a very kind of wolf-like attitude towards women. He's married, has kids, but he's also fools around constantly. So the supporting cast they're all great, and the storylines are, they're really interesting, and it's amazing to watch this, this ad agency where these guys sat around, they drank at work, they smoked constantly, things that you don't see anymore. They wore suit and ties to work every day. They had those hats, those fedoras and things, and the women are dressed great. It's like when women were women. So Mad Men, great series. And my number one.
Being typed.
What's that?
I say I can hear some fingers on keyboards right now typing in on the comment section. Damn that samurai!
All I gotta say is Christina Hendricks. Enough said. So my final binge-worthy series for me is Lost. Lost premiered in 2004, ran for 6 seasons till 2010. Of course, everybody hates the final season, and especially the final episode. I didn't mind it that much. I thought it was fine. But, wow, this movie grabbed me from the very first episode. It's this oceanic flight that crashed on an island. And it starts with the crash, the aftermath of the crash. The turbine, there's a turbine still spinning around in the background. Things are on fire everywhere. People are running around. And then Jack Shepherd wakes up. It's Dr. Jack Shepherd. He's kind of like the main character that runs through the whole series. He's kind of like the everyman. And then it's all this other characters, Kate, Sawyer, Hurley. And then it jumps back and forth to each, like every episode is a backstory of each character. And then there's this mysterious island, the others, and they find this this hatch, where it has these numbers on it. Anybody remember the numbers from Lost, the series of 6 numbers?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are familiar.
4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 43. So those numbers are everywhere in the series and even in the background. And they're like Easter eggs throughout. So, like I said, Hughes and Lindelof show ran this for the past few seasons, and it was kind of hit and miss. Some seasons were better than others. Some were just magnificent. The music throughout this series was just like sublime. I love this music in the series, and they had some great moments. Everybody remembers Not Penny's boat. The hand on the glass where he had written on his hand, and so many great moments in the series. And I've actually rewatched this twice, so I may do it again over these this quarantine. So we'll see what happens. I got to catch up on a lot of other stuff though. But yeah, those are my binge-worthy series.
Gotcha. How about you, Zach?
All right, so my first choice for binging is first a series that is still ongoing, and that is Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is a series that gets better with each rewatch because every show you get to discover a little more, and every show as you watch the season goes on ties back to older episodes. It also has a lot of fan service. It has a lot of great comedy. It's run by Dan Harmon, who show ran Community until he was run out. You've also got Justin Roiland, who voices both Rick and Morty, who is absolutely fantastic. The comedy in here is really just almost dangerously funny. But it's so on point. It not only services the fans, it also insults the fans, but really just does so well with the way it's written. It's one of those shows that just gets better with every rewatch. The second show that I chose is a new series on Disney Plus, and that is The World According to Jeff Goldblum. It is kind of an everyman fascination with everyday things. And of course, it's Jeff Goldblum, so it's really just infinitely charming and infinitely weird because he's just fascinated by normal things like sneakers and ice cream and things like that. It's just one of those things where, I never thought of it that way. And yet you're seeing it thought of that way. And the episode where he makes his own ice cream, then takes it to military service. So you see how military service gets ice cream. It's just a really strange and phenomenally watchable series. The third that I chose is Glow on Netflix. If you like 80s this is a show for you. If you like good ensemble comedy and drama, this is a show for you. If you like professional wrestling, this is really a show for you. It takes place in the 80s and is loosely based on the actual promotion Glow, which was around in LA and which got into syndication. And it stars a very strong ensemble female cast. Alison Brie, Betty Gilpin, as we mentioned earlier. You have Mark Maron, who is a phenomenally half sleazy, half heart of gold guy, and just everyone in this show really puts kind of their all into this. They not only do it both dramatically and actingly, but also physically, because it's a wrestling show, and they actually do wrestling. It is set around real wrestlers, constructed by real wrestlers, and putting in, like I said, just every little detail. If you've ever wondered about this world, it really is kind of a true to life show about it. And again, it's a really great look back at not only the 80s and the culture and things like that, but also what entertainment was and how we kind of developed some of our attitudes. And again, the ensemble just makes this show exactly what it is. Wonderful plot lines, great writing, great comedy. It's a really good show to go and watch and just sit down and go through the whole thing, because it really is solid from beginning to end. It is still ongoing, and it's going to get its final season here very shortly on Netflix.
Awesome.
Wow.
Damn. All that.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I've actually got a couple as well. And of course, every time I put these lists together, just for folks who are watching at home, I'm always aware that Carlos is going to come up with the classics. Zack's going to pick these films that are going to test you and unnerve you in some kind of way. He'll tell you it's great, even though you might have skipped it. So I love that. And, I've got to try to somehow fit in the middle and say, here's some pop stuff, but here's some stuff that also says I'll actually watch good stuff too. But I'll tell you this. I don't watch a lot of regular TV, but a series that has caught my attention and I find very binge-worthy now, since it's already 4 seasons in, so I haven't seen the first couple seasons. I just started here at season 3. And that is the series Bull, which stars Michael Weatherly as Dr. Jason Bull. And it's a drama inspired by the early career of Dr. Phil, actually. And so the series is interesting because he owns this trial consulting company, Dr. Bull, and he's looking for cases, and he's hired by lawyers who are needing him to help him with the voir dire process of law, which is to help them pick the people who would be most willing to listen to the arguments made by the counsel. So what's great about this show is that you get to not only see how some of that whole social dynamic works, but you get to see the types of cases that people are arguing over. Like, today when you can do paternity type tests to find out someone really is arisen and someone's used it to extort, or that someone's, donated a certain amount of, say, eggs or their sperm because someone can't have children, and then that person now wants to come back. I mean, they tackle all these things intelligently and put it in a courtroom drama type setting, and you're sometimes going, I don't really think they should be defending this person because this person's a real crook. And then other times going, man, this person's getting run over by this corporation. I hope Bull does take this case. So it has lots of intrigue. It's one of those better series out there, I think, right now. And again, I don't watch a lot of TV series usually because I'm watching more YouTube probably than anything else. And before that, going to the movies. Also, I have, and I think this is a sleeper, AMC did the Bates Motel. And I'm really surprised at how very few people I run into that haven't seen this or even watched it, especially if they're big fans of Alfred Hitchcock. So the Bates Motel is this American psychological horror drama television series, right, that basically picks up and says, let's give you the prequel to Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 film. Like, what happened? Who was Norman when he was a kid and with his mom, and were these traits there beforehand? So it's based off that book by Robert Bloch, the novel of the same name in 1959. So this series, I think right now it's like into 5 series. If you go back and watch it, the standout is 2 people. Vera Farmiga, who, by the way, won an award for her role playing Norma Bates.
Yeah.
I'm losing your sound here, PJ.
Set.
Losing your sound. Check
You
your
lose
mic.
the sound.
Yeah. Check.
Okay.
There you are.
I can hear you.
Okay, there you are.
Okay. All right.
Went
So
go ahead.
appreciate it. Thank you. So what you have here is you have a wonderful imagining of what was it like to be a teenage, Norman Bates, and Vera Farmiga. Oh my God, she's really good at playing that weird, creepy vibe of someone who's super unstable, who talks like they know what they're talking about. She's really good at manipulating him in this series. And then you actually sometimes go, now I kind of see why he would want to do certain things. But then it just crosses these lines, which makes you uncomfortable. Just like in Gladiator, when you see the relationship between the brother and sister.
Yes.
You see this weird kind of scenario between mother and son, and how committed they are.
Yeah, in a way.
It has this vibe to it, without really going there. So Bates Motel, I think, is a very slept-on series, and I've got to actually pick up season 5. I've watched the first 4 series and loved it. Freddie Highmore is a ridiculously good actor. In other words, he, as a young Norman Bates, is akin to Ewan McGregor playing Ben Kenobi, or playing Wolverine. He's blanking. Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine. How you can't see anybody else playing that, or how you can't see anybody else playing Iron Man. I can't see anybody else playing a young Norman Bates. This guy has everything down. So, if anything, check out a season, see what you think of Bates Motel. It was on AMC, and then my number
British actor too. You couldn't even tell.
Correction, it was on A&E, not AMC.
A&E. Sorry, my bad. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah.
So for that last one, this again is something that surprises me as well. But I really feel like right now, if you're not watching Yellowstone, it's in season right now. Season 2 just finished. They're about to start season 3. Carlos, I gave you the DVDs for you to check it out. If you want to see the best, well-written characters with interesting plot twists, and then see how it all connects. Whether you love, my boy or not, this is the role that's suited for him. And Taylor Sheridan, I'm sorry, I don't know who writes better than him consistently. I just don't know who puts the right kind of intrigue to characters and characterization like he does, and then puts them in certain plot points that you have to see get undone. What would you say, Carlos? Would you say?
Oh yeah, I mean, he does characterization very well. I even have my favorite character in the show, and yeah, you're right. That last season was intense with a capital I, and yeah, you don't get much drama series better than this. I don't think. It's just a superb series. I really enjoyed these seasons.
Yeah, and I would say this is right there on par with Breaking Bad. I really would. It hangs right there with it. Again, something that you wouldn't think you'd care a lot about, a teacher who's selling meth, right? But then you do get pulled into Breaking Bad. Here, you might think, well, who cares? I don't own a ranch. I don't own millions like, the main character here, Kevin Costner. Yeah, right? But you end up getting pulled in by the other characters. And the villains, by the way.
Kelly Riley, one of the most interesting female characters you'll ever see in a show. She's something else. She's a piece of work, as you would say, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir. So
and everybody that comes across her is like, what the fuck?
Yeah. She's a buzzsaw. She's a buzzsaw going through Jello. I mean, it's incredible to see what happens. So with that, folks, friends and true believers, we would say that these are the series. There will be more. We'll talk more, but these are the first ones that came to mind. And now let's talk about individual movies now. Not necessarily series, but movies that they don't have to necessarily be a classic, but definitely are worth a rewatch, especially now. And we'll go with you first. Film Samurai.
All right, let's go 3, 2, 1. My first one, Tombstone. This is one of my favorite all-time westerns. Of course, this is the story of Wyatt Earp, of course, and Doc Holliday, and it's really an ode to the Old West, where men were men, and the cast in this film, Kurt Russell, Bill Paxton, Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday, to me, is an iconic role. there's a great saloon scene with him and Michael Biehn. Michael Biehn is one of this part of this gang of locals who are just basically terrorizing the town and murdering, and they kill a priest, in one of the opening scenes. And it's almost like an epic. It's almost operatic to me in its storytelling, especially as it gets toward the end, and all the killing and the face-offs. Like I said, I could rewatch this anytime. I've watched it many times. I've watched it with my family at home, by myself. Probably my favorite time watching, of course, was in the theater, because to me it was just this grand vision. My second is when I saw this, it was called The Road Warrior. It came out in '81, directed by George Miller, and man, I was blown away by this film. Watching it for the first time, because it was a very simple story. It was post-apocalyptic. It opens with this loner, quiet guy, didn't speak a word, driving this interceptor. This engine sticking out of the hood, and he's just driving down the road looking for gas, and then he comes across these wasteland savages. These guys with mohawks riding these motorcycles. And in its storytelling at its finest, at its simplest, and the stunts in this movie are unbelievable. The music is great. It's a sequel to Mad Max, the Mel Gibson one of his early starring roles, where he plays a cop, where this is the beginning of the apocalypse, where guys on the road were just murdering, and it was just mayhem, and his wife and child were killed. And so now he's just this burnt out guy who's just trying to survive. He's still got remnants of his leather police uniform, and one of his legs is all beaten up. He's got a brace on it. And it's just these two great chase scenes in the middle of the movie, one in the middle and one towards the end. And it's just epic. I love this movie. I must have watched this at least a dozen times. My number one rewatchable for this time is Gladiator.
Yes, fist bump.
Ridley Scott. Damn. This movie is wow. I can't say enough about it. Russell Crowe performance as the Spaniard, Maximus, and Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus. This villainous role of a lifetime. There's so many. There's the language in this movie. The script is so good. The costuming, the set pieces, that opening battle scene where these flaming arrows taking off and these catapults, and they're fighting these Germanians, and these are the last vestiges of the rebellious armies against Rome's army. Rome was back then, they controlled most of what is known back then as the world, and this was their final battle, and the king wanted to finally give up. He was tired, he was old. Richard Harris is great, Caesar. Oh my gosh, that scene between Caesar and Commodus, and then the story. So it's almost the story of what was that old Kubrick movie? Why can't I think of it? Spartacus. It's almost the same plot in a way. So he's enslaved, and he's fighting these gladiator battles. He becomes this champion, and then finally he gets to fight in the arena, the main arena in Rome. And he finally gets to face off against Commodus. And oh man, it's the music. This is one of my favorite soundtracks. I loved it so much I bought it, CD, played it all the time. It's one of those movies. Yeah, you can rewatch again and again, and you can repeat the lines as they're saying them. Like, I've watched it so many times. So it's a beautiful film.
Ridley Scott, absolutely.
Ridley Scott. And nobody makes films like this guy, right?
They don't. And this is one of the first, not first, but when they were starting to use CGI a little bit, because this was right about the time that CGI was starting to get explored with a little bit more, certainly not where it is today, but the CGI part of those tigers and whatnot, and how they were able to blend that in, and the CGI of rebuilding Rome, the Colosseum and everything. Yeah. So it doesn't get many nods for that, but it was starting to, they were in that front deal with putting CGI more into movies, so
Making it look seamless, because a lot of the action stuff, you would think they used CGI, but there's a lot of practical effects as well.
Yep.
I'm sure he's like Nolan, where he tries to use as practical effects as much as possible and uses CGI to enhance the backgrounds and things like that. But yeah,
Yep.
you're right. Sometimes you just have to use it, and this film just amazing, just and visually just stunning.
There it is. How about you, Kate, Zach?
All right, so I guess I'll go 1, 2, 3 on mine. So the first one that I chose, is what I consider to be the greatest musical of all time, and that is the Blues Brothers.
Cats? Oh.
No. Get away from it. Get behind me, Satan. Get behind me. No. The Blues Brothers. It is still the greatest movie musical of all time. The greatest soundtrack of all time, including Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, and James Brown.
Mm-hmm.
It is infinitely quotable. It has terrific character performances from Carrie Fisher, Charles Napier, and of course, John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd really, I can't say that it was really their peak as a comedy duo, because they never really got the peak. But I mean, it's still just incredibly funny. Dan Aykroyd puts together a great script. John Landis, of course, at the height of his powers as a director. It is also still a love letter to the city of Chicago. It still holds up. Everything in that movie holds up. The comedy in it holds up. The action in it holds up. The action sequences are great. Just the car crashes, the chases, it's so over the top. It's absolutely amazing to watch, and it's amazing to watch every time. It is just one of those films where, like I said, that soundtrack is gorgeous.
Henry Gibson
Okay.
has the KKK.
Yeah. Henry Gibson, John Candy. I mean, and the mall.
Sure. Who wanted to kill John Belushi in the movie?
Exactly. You wanted to kill both of them. And the ends that they go to for these two brothers on a mission from God it still holds up as just a great funny comedy, a great action comedy. It is, and like I said, it is still the greatest musical of all time.
Pound it.
There we are. Selection number 2. Horror films for a lot of folks aren't watchable unless you're a real horror buff. This one in particular, though, is rewatchable because, there's no twist. It is just a bad night in a cabin, and it is Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. Sam Raimi really kind of sets the bar of what 80s horror could be with this film. Bruce Campbell puts in an amazingly physical performance. The visuals are still gross and horrific and disgusting. The chainsaw to the hand is still iconic. It's one of those films where if I'm going to show someone a horror film, this is the film I'm going to show them, because, like I said, I can go back and watch it over and over again because it's really funny. It is really funny for not just for a horror film, but for just a film. I mean, if you wanted to see Jim Carrey levels of physicality, Bruce Campbell really puts on a clinic in this film, fighting himself with a hand. Dual placement scenes, the makeup, the puppetry, the grossness in it is just absolutely phenomenal every end of the way. And of course, Sam Raimi's camera work in the film is still just top notch. I mean, a low budget effect of just strapping a camera to a 2x4 and running behind someone in the woods, it really is a phenomenal piece of low tech cinema, and it still holds up as far as a horror film goes. It's just one that I'll go back and rewatch again and again, not only for Sam Raimi's direction, but Bruce Campbell's acting, but also because it's just a really good horror film.
Awesome.
The third one that I chose is a film that, like I said, even when you know the twist, it's still worth going back and watching, and that is Fight Club. Fight Club is as you when you know the twist and watch it again, you catch little glimpses, you catch little things, you catch on little parts of a David Fincher's direction. Brad Pitt is phenomenal as Tyler Durden, Edward Norton as the narrator, and Fight Club kind of holds a special place for me as a book, because it's a book that I go back and read every year, because it's spare. It is a very masculine tale. Helena Bonham Carter as the I don't want to call her a love interest. Because she's just despicable, but Marla Singer is really just one of those horrible characters that you really kind of love. Everything about this movie makes you want to take a shower, but everything in this movie is just so good, cinematically, acting wise, comedy wise, the beats, the physicality, the direction, everything in it is worth watching. And it's one of those films where if it's on TV, I'll watch it no matter where it is, and I'll watch it again and again and again, because it is just that good.
Man, that's so good, so good. See what you're getting, Fulfillment fans. Good stuff here, passionate people talking about what they really, really know, so you can trust it. You can trust it. So let me give you my 3, and then we'll talk about the next episode and our shout outs. So my 3, I had to, again, thinking of the list, I'm thinking about also the people that I know who are also putting up their list. So I wanted to put some of my favorites up there, but also I threw in a twist at number 3, and that is Nacho Libre. I put this in there because I think people need to laugh now, right? Yes. With the coronavirus being what it is, sometimes you just need to watch absurdity that actually kind of makes sense. And when you see, this Jack Black playing a luchador, and him and Esqueleto, and how they're trying to be a tag team wrestling, even though during the day his day job's that of a friar. He's a monk, and just the quotes for this film. As soon as you mention Nacho Libre, people's faces start to just get bright, right? Because this movie is just funny, and I dare you to put on a pair of turquoise tights and some red boots and not talk about stretchy pants. You will do it, and you will dress like that for Halloween. So Nacho Libre, Jack Black puts in a performance that to me shows why he can be annoying, but how he can also be a genius when he's on the rails. He can do either one. Like, he's great in Orange County, he's great in School of Rock, but then there's a couple of his vehicles, maybe not so much. But Nacho Libre, I wanted on here because you need to watch something funny and something fun and something lighthearted, and this gives you that. Now, the 2 big ones for me here, and I kind of got stuck in a Denzel Washington frame of mind, but whenever I want to watch something solid with good action and performance, lately Denzel has showed up, and so Book of Eli is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yes.
The twist I don't have to talk about, but the fact that he's just this walker with just the machete, and the soundtrack. Like you talked about soundtracks, K-Zack. I love that soundtrack that they're playing the Al Green song, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, when he's in that house all by himself, looking around and thinking, and that's the only thing he can play on his recorder before it runs out, because not much power juice left. And that's the song. And that song, the way it was used, captures what it would feel like to be one of few people on the earth who you don't know is infected or whatever, right? And so Book of Eli, Denzel Washington, great twist, and Mila Kunis is in it. She does a great job as a Padawan, if you will, to him. And Gary Oldman, as the villain here, sold it. The fight scenes, incredible, great choreography. There wasn't one boring fight scene in it. And sometimes fight scenes can be so choreographed that you get bored. Not here. Every fight scene in the Book of Eli comes off wonderful. And then my number 1, I think you can rewatch right now, is The Equalizer. People will tell you that John Wick is great, and it is to its degree for what it's trying to do, but I will say Equalizer does it better because you actually care about the characters here. You care about Robert Thomas and how is he going to eventually get away from being secret ops to he helps this young girl, prostitute. What's her name?
Chloe Moretz.
Yeah.
Chloe Moretz, yeah.
Just the relationship he forges with her in an all-night diner. And then them talking about books that they've read. So it's so intellectually smart, as well as it has great villains. And I love the villain in this movie as well. He was a badass. He's what Kylo Ren should have been. Okay, so you want to threatening villain. This guy in Equalizer is threatening. And so if you haven't seen it, because everybody was watching John Wick instead, Equalizer is definitely worth a watch and then a rewatch. So this is for you guys. We love putting this out here for you. Now let's talk about the next episode, which will come up April 12th. We will continue to give you more series and more rewatchable movies as we've discovered them. And if we have to talk more about movies in the theater, we can do that as well. But let's start with you, Film Samurai. Who are you shouting out?
Shouting out to Matthew and Nicole, my kids, both in Austin, hanging in there. Nicole's working from home. Matt's gonna eventually go back to school. I guess they're gonna do an online course or something. But cousins out in California, Stella and Joelle, and of course one of our favorite fans here, Mad Mel. We always love her, hearing from her. So yeah, and all my film fans on Twitter.
Love it. Awesome. How about you, Zack?
Shout outs to our guys on the Rancourt Pit, Figments, and Isle of Toys. That's Cole Houston and Eddie Medina. Like I said, good friends who have shows here on DallasOnAir.com. They should be back in studio in some aspect, one way or the other, next Sunday. Like I said, if we've got to do a Skype call, we'll do a Skype call like we did today. But we'll do our best to bring you shows and continue to bring you shows. We do want to shout out the owners of Dallas On Air, Jansen and Kat, who, like I said, keep the lights on to make sure that we've got a show to come to. And finally, I do want to shout out to all the folks working through the crisis at this time, healthcare workers, retail folks, folks basically making sure that your lives don't have as much disruption as possible by putting themselves at risk. And of course, like I said, just trying to keep us going. Thank you to everyone who, like I said, is putting out there day to day as we keep on grinding and get through this damn thing one way or the other.
I love it. That's great. And I also want to give a shout out to some of the folks that I've been seeing on social media as well, talking about us. So Lauren Wiedauer, Tristan Frazier, Harry Thomas, who also reviews movies, Troy Ross, Michael Paul, Daniel Meza, who's a good friend of the Samurai, and myself. Of course, Mad Mel. She's always on the channel talking to us on YouTube, so we appreciate that. We encourage more people to do this. Stephanie Crane, Scott Laney, and Sandra up there in the Middle East. So final thought, also a shout out to, again, all the doctors right now who are out there, the first responders, and then just anyone who is choosing to not be someone who's going to hoard all the beans or all the hand sanitizer and all the toilet paper. Instead, see some people who look like they could use some help. Maybe there's some elderly people who are lost right now. Imagine their world right now. They can't even imagine what this is like, right? And so they're way behind. They're not on the internet feeds able to read, find out what's the quickest thing because they're afraid of it, right? And so I've seen some of them at the grocery store just not know what to do. Because everybody else is pushing them out the way to make sure they get all the hand sanitizer and that they get all the toilet paper. And I'm just going to say strongly and firmly, as a person of conviction here, you know what? We get better when we help others, not just help ourselves. That's how we get better. This show is done so that we want to bring out our passion to talk to other people who have passion for movies. And so it's just us kind of sharing and unifying in that way. So when it comes to these supplies, come on, folks. Come on. If we're in America, we got plenty, a lot here to be acting like you're in Cambodia or somewhere else. So again, be very aware of your fellow man because they're your fellow and they're man, right? So with that, we're good. And so we're just going to kick it off. I can't hear the music, but we're just going to send it to Kazak, and Kazak's going to send us out.
Sayonara, everybody. See you next week.
See you guys.
Next time.
This is DallasOnAir.com.